Well, the first thing I would want to say to those people that are legitimately suffering with, post-traumatic stress disorder or any of those other anxiety disorders is that there's always hope. It's saddening to me to see that, one, there's an overdiagnosis of it. I think physicians nowadays are just too easy to throw the label on it. And then also the complete disregard for the people that actually are suffering with it. They get lost in this giant pool of people that are either misdiagnosed or may have some sort of other disorder that they have to get worked on that's labeled as PTSD.
So conflict has been very good to law enforcement today and to a number of our clients for investigative purposes, for some dudes who've been in a real jam. So you're among good people. Just an incredible company that's really continuing to serve with a group of guys that have a real long history of service. So I'm assuming that you've got some kind of background in service.
I do. They didn't just bring me on in good faith. After graduating college, I went to college down in Florida, Southeastern University, and after that, I joined the Army, and I was in the Army for 8 years, and I was a Green Beret for my time in the Army. So U.S. Army Special Forces out of Fort Campbell, 5th Special Forces Group, and I just got out a little over a year ago, and then transitioned, and I worked in finance out of in New York City for a little while, and that's when I met Conflict International, was through some of the networking there, and immediately just hit it off with Steve and Mike. And as that relationship bloomed and we started to learn about each other, we found that we were all kind of a good match. And I have a passion for the type of work that Conflict does, intelligence, security, investigations. I did a lot of that in the military in my time with Special Forces, in a different world, in a different realm, maybe some different targets, but Steve and Mike are helping me to really refine those skills and fit them into the private sector, especially with Conflict International and their specific mission set and dealing with the clientele there.
What was it like going from 5th to trying to reacclimate into society when people are upset if they don't have enough extra foam on their latte?
It's definitely difficult. Living in New York City is a complete opposite from living I was down in Nashville, Tennessee. So living there, but then just the standards, the mentality, just how people act and react on their normal daily life. I would say that I'm still figuring it out. I am, but what's nice is just I have a passion for people. I do. I have a passion for helping people. That's what brought me into the military. I know that's cheesy, but it is, and made me really good at what I did in the military. And it's part of the reason I have a passion for this job. And I love the position that I have because I get to interact with our clients and I get to interact with new people, and I get really personal with them. We're big on developing that personal relationship and our custom solutions for our clients, and that takes building a relationship with people, and that's something I love doing, I enjoy doing. It definitely brings a whole new aspect to what I'm used to, but I love it. I love everything about it.
Thinking about your time in the service, tell me a story about a shitty day on the job.
Oh, there was a number of shitty days. I would have to say, a quick backstory. I was on my team, our ODA, and there was one guy that I was on the team with. We were inseparable. We were close from day one. We had done every deployment together, and there was a time when he got switched to another team, and it was his first deployment that we weren't together, and unfortunately he was killed in action. He was my best friend. He was my roommate. Actually, we were living together in Nashville, and I was home doing some training, and he was deployed. And when somebody asked me what my shittiest day in the Army was, that was when I got that call. And his brothers were living in Nashville as well, so I went with the chaplain to spend time with his brothers during that. So that whole episode, that whole period of my life, I would say, was just kind of one big shitty experience. But I've gotten to a point now where I just remember the good times. I remember him as a person. He died a hero. And
tell me about him. What was his name?
His name was Kevin McEnroe. He was actually killed in Jordan and it was one of the soldiers that he was working with, one of the local national soldiers, actually turned on them and killed him and 2 other Green Berets. And it was really shitty just because his defenses were down. They weren't in a fight, and it really sucked. They were actually coming back from doing a training event, and he was killed. And it was heartbreaking because, when all the requisite agencies afterwards were doing their investigations, obviously I was heavily involved in that and trying to maintain my professionalism, but also watching a video, because it was all on surveillance video over and over of my best friend being killed, made me relive it. But he was a hero. He was a superstar, one of the best Green Berets I'd ever worked with. Never shied away from a fight. Always was there for his brothers. Always was there for his teammates, and really inspired the rest of the team to just rise to that next level. And that's tough to do with a lot of guys that are already superstars.
A lot of us are, some people would use the word blessed, others would use the word privileged to say that we don't see the darkest pits of society on a daily basis. And I have to imagine that both your time in the service and even, frankly, in the work that you're doing now, you see that the world isn't a perfect, happy place filled with bubbles and sunshine. Talk to me a little bit about the need to hold the line between good and evil. Obviously, it's imperative. And I think that when we talk about that, the first thing that comes to mind is the men and women that do that are the ones that are on that line. It takes a unique person, takes a unique mindset to be able to see really the evils of humanity, to see just how dark certain people can be, and to stand between those people and the people that we don't want to have to see that. So, obviously I think about my loved ones, I think about my family, and I would never want them to be exposed to that side of humanity. And unfortunately, sometimes they see that, but that line is so important to be maintained because those people, those individuals that do that kind of evil should not be allowed to cross over into the good side, the side that we try to protect. And that's, every day I wake up, I still see that as my mission, as my goal. I want to touch base on a subject that's near and dear to us here and to a lot of people, frankly, who watch this show. A lot of guys and women who have served overseas or who serve in law enforcement have gone through some shit, right? Experiences like this. And they're battling not necessarily physical injuries, but mental injuries, post-traumatic stress. And then you come back here and you see people who need therapy ducks to fly in a plane, who say that, just an experience of something that they saw in the news triggered them. Right. How do you deal with that as a guy who I'm sure has dealt with a lot of brothers and sisters who are truly in that? How do you reconcile that? And what words of advice can you give to people?
Well, the first thing I would want to say to those people that are legitimately suffering with, post-traumatic stress disorder or any of those other anxiety disorders is that there's always hope. Don't give up. Days can be shitty, but there's people out there that are willing to help you, in all aspects of life. But also, I think that there is a distinction, post-traumatic stress disorder, if we'll go with that. There has to be trauma, in my opinion, involved in that. And I think that generally in society today, there's this victimhood mentality. People want to be victims, and it's sad. It truly is sad that people want to be victims. They want to be labeled as that. And then you have people that are actually suffering with it, and they look at it and they're like, well, I don't want this label. I don't want this. I wish that my life could be normal. I wish that I would be able to make it through a night of sleep without nightmares. And it's saddening to me to see that, one, there's an overdiagnosis of it. I think physicians nowadays are just too easy to throw the label on it. And then also the complete disregard for the people that actually are suffering with it. They get lost in this giant pool of people that are either misdiagnosed or may have some sort of other disorder that they have to get worked on that's labeled as PTSD. I think it's a real thing. I absolutely do. But I think it's not something to be labeled or taken lightly, because you're right. I do know a lot of people that have suffered with that, do suffer with that. and their lives truly are bound up by it, and it hurts to see that. And then, to your point, the people that are kind of just labeled that, or they saw something terrible on the news. I don't want to use the word sickening, but it is nauseating to see that, in my opinion.
I want to circle back around for a minute to the work that you're doing now with Conflict. Okay. So obviously we hired them because of the work that we've seen them do over the years, the impact that they've had, personally, professionally, with so many different clients of ours and friends of ours. We've also seen that they've hunted the best and the brightest to join their team, people who are far from being snowflakes. Right. Talk to me about the honor of working in what is one of the most prestigious, frankly, intelligence agencies in the world in the private sector side.
I'm still kind of awestruck, to be honest with you. I definitely would not describe myself as one of those individuals, but I trust my leadership. I trust the guys that I work with. I do have a chance to work very closely with guys like Mike and Steve. And they've invested a lot in me, and I appreciate that. And when I say awestruck, it's really because of that. But also that knowing that about this organization, about that company, just motivates me and drives me to be my best every day. When I come to work, and whatever it is that I'm doing, like I said, my job usually encompasses a lot. Sometimes I don't even know what's about to get laid on my plate, but being able to adapt, to adjust, those types of things, I thrive in those types of environments, and I love the environment that Conflict creates for its people. They constantly give you the ability to be a leader in your world, in your realm. And you're right. Everybody that I've met so far, that I work with, that I deal with, is just professional, unparalleled.
Awesome, brother. Thank you for your service. Thanks for coming
man.
out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sign the bottle, put it on the wall.
Will do, man.
Guys,
absolutely.
Thank you all for watching. Thanks for hitting that share button. God bless America.